Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the information event for the Postdoctoral Fellowship Award. It's ESRC funded, but this particular competition is run by the Southwest Doctoral Training Partnership, SWDTP. I'm Angeline Barrett. I'm the Deputy Director of the SWDTP, and we also have with us Joe. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Jo Williams. I'm the coordinator here at the DTP, and for the purposes of this postdoctoral fellowship, I help just in the background to really smooth the flow if I can.
Okay, and our administrative assistant Brendan Walsh is also here in the background. As we present, if you have any questions, yeah, say hello then, Brendan. No.
Hello everyone. Good to meet you all.
If you have any questions, do pop them in the Q&A. So my role with respect to the postdoctoral fellowship is I kind of coordinate the main competition that we run. So that brings us on to what the stage is, what it is and what the stages of the postdoctoral fellowship are. So for the competition this year, at the moment there's different phases to it. So there's universities, within universities are running an expression of interest competition. So we can only accept for the main competition nominees who've been successful at that expression of interest stage, and different institutions may run that differently. Most of them are using a form that's pretty similar, or I think just about all of them are using a form that is in some ways quite similar with the main application form, but much shorter. So preparing the expression of interest kind of starts laying the groundwork for preparing the main bid. We then run a main competition. I'll give you more details on the timings of all of these. So you have a maximum of 38 nominees may be successful at that expression of interest stage, taken across all of our 8 partner institutions. I'll show you who those are in a minute. We then run the main competition stage with a deadline the 1st of June. We can only award 5 postdoctoral fellowships. The ESRC then enters into a contract directly with the host institution for those awardees who are successful. So we don't actually provide the funding. The funding comes from the ESRC. It doesn't come via us. There's a direct contract between the host institution and between the ESRC and the postdoctoral fellow, who I'm now going to call PDF. The PDF is employed by that university. So this is our partnership. We have 8 partner universities, and each of them will be running an expression of interest stage competition unless they get 2 or fewer applications. So each university has a certain number of applications that they can put forward, nominate for the next process, and how many they can nominate really depends on how many pathways they have. There's our SWDTP pathways. As I say, any questions, do put them in the Q&A, or at the end, we hope there'll be some time for questions as well. Now, there's certain things, quite a few things different from previous years. I mean, you probably noticed that we're running the PDF competition much later. Those are for reasons where they're to do with the ESRC and its budget, nothing to do with us. We kind of swung into action as soon as we possibly could. And for budget reasons, also for reasons to do the ESRC budget, the PDF for 2026, so that's October, it starts October 2026, will only be for 9 months full time. You can do it part-time for 0.5 or for a larger point. So you can do it for up to 18 months part-time. And that, excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze. But and different from previous years, that start date is a hard start date. It's not possible to defer because they need to spend all their money by the 30th of June for the full time, or by the 30th of, I think that works out, it's the 30th of March 2028 for those who are part-time. Is that right? Yeah. So what is a postdoctoral fellowship? it's in some ways, the way that you apply for it and you put together a proposal and apply for it is very much like any other research grant, any kind of competitive application for research funding. But it's not really a research project in that it doesn't fund you to do new research. And the rules this year is they won't fund any new research. So it's a research grant, but it's not really a research project. As with any funded research, the postdoc fellow is an employee of the university where they hold the postdoc fellowship. The point of it is to really consolidate and build on the PhD to kind of move you on to the next step of your career, and to further your research and career aspirations. And to do that, you're supported by a mentor, which is funded through the postdoc fellowship, who should be an academic with relevant experience in order to be a mentor for your particular career, who works well with your particular career aspirations. And like a research project, I suppose, you also have a program of activities that you'll be following for that year. Can I just say, you can't hold the postdoc fellowship alongside any other work unless in very exceptional circumstances where your normal pattern of doing the PhD of work, as demonstrated through the way you did the PhD, is to work part-time while on the PhD while you were holding another position. That's quite exceptional. So on the whole, the expectation is the postdoc fellowship is your main work for the duration in which you're doing it. And we do appreciate that does introduce an element of risk for some people. If you're having to give up a full-time position in order to do the postdoc fellowship, that's definitely something you should think about hard before doing. The kind of activities that you can do, so there's a kind of list of the kind of activities you can do. It's not supposed to be a list that completely limits what you can do. You may think of other types of activities, but it certainly gives a very strong indication of what generally you're expected to do during the postdoc fellowship. And that includes producing publications, because you're certainly going to need those, particularly publications out of your PhD, in order to progress your career. It could be about kind of impact and engagement from the PhD, for example, engaging with different audiences in order to communicate your research findings. It may be about building your networks, collaborating with users of your research training, developing funding proposals is an important activity for a lot of people if that's what they'd like to do next, to carry on doing research. And those may be funding proposals which you will be leading as principal investigator, such as the ESRC News Investigators Grant. So there are certain types of research calls which are designed for early career researchers. Or it may be that someone who you're working with, possibly your mentor, but you know someone who's putting together a large bid and you contribute towards that bid and you get your name on the bid. Really important to get your name on the bid, so that if it's successful, you may then continue to have a research fellowship role working on that grant. You are allowed to teach, but this, you should show how this aligns with the PDF. In other words, why is it necessary for you to be teaching in order to further your career? So if you've got a lot of teaching experience already in higher education, actually the PDF may be an opportunity to take a break from that. But on the other hand, if you feel it's an area where you really need to kind of build your CV, or you're particularly looking for a teaching position after the PDF, then you may teach, but only for a maximum of 6 hours a week. And you're also allowed research visits, either internationally or within UK, actually, to leading research organisations. So perhaps where certain facilities or there's access to things at that institution that are not available within your host institution. Do be realistic about what you can do. It's not a tick. It's not a game bingo. You don't have to tick all of the things. on the list. What really matters is you've got this kind of coherent program of activities, and you've convincingly argued that it will be important, or that the activities kind of hold together in order to support your career development. It said that those activities are supported by a mentor. The mentor was costed as part of the research expenses. So you get £7,500 research expenses, and you have to include the cost of the mentor. So that's probably going to be the largest item in your research expense account. And they should be costed for between 1 or 2 hours a week. There's not a lot of flexibility in that. You're expected to meet regularly. It should be someone who has experience, relevant experience. So, you know, if your ambition is to become a principal investigator, and one of your planned activities, for example, is to write a research proposal for during your PDF 9 months, then we'd expect to see that you have a research mentor who has themselves got experience as a PI. So they're going to have relevant experience and a strong interest in the field. And they write a letter of support. And really what we're looking for in that letter of support is they're demonstrating an interest in your career and some kind of vision for your career. They may also have specific skills and experience for mentoring an early career researcher, but we don't rule out people just because they haven't played that role before. And often this is someone who you might actually collaborate with on a research grant. It's really important that it's somebody in the social sciences, ESRC, Economic and Social Research Council. That means that any proposal has to demonstrate that it's over 50% social science research. Now, we do understand and appreciate that and welcome interdisciplinary research. But if you are applying with interdisciplinary research, it's really important that you demonstrate that it is over 50% social sciences. And one of the ways that you demonstrate that is you have a mentor who is based in the social sciences, which means they're based in a department, which is the social science department. You should also indicate on the application form, this includes the expression of interest form, we have 19 different disciplinary pathways within the SWDTP, and you should demonstrate that your research is aligned with one of those pathways. Now that includes 5 interdisciplinary pathways. You may, under exceptional circumstances, have more than one mentor, but the main mentor should be in social sciences. So if it's interdisciplinary, you may have a secondary mentor who you don't meet quite so regularly, or don't budget for so many hours, who is based outside of social sciences. We really, really do not encourage you to apply with your supervisor as your mentor. Your supervisor is kind of in your team anyway and will support your career anyway. This is a great opportunity to get somebody else kind of advising you and giving you insights into how you progress your career as a social science researcher. So I mentioned the mentor costs. So this is what's included in the postdoctoral fellowship funding. Includes your salary, indirect costs and estate costs. Those are all things your accountant calculates. So the university accountant will draw up these expenses for you. And you have what you have that you can actually have some flexibility and control over is £7,500. Can I just say your salary costs? This is a postdoctoral fellowship. We can't tell you what the salary will be. There are no rules about what the salary can be that are explicit, but we do expect, and we do a value of money assessment of your application, and we do expect it to be broadly consistent with the normal rates of pay within your institution for somebody who's at that postdoctoral phase in their career. And your institution, the institution you're applying through, will be able to advise on that. So that's 7,500 that you can play around with. That does include mentor time, and as I said, it's going to take a massive chunk out of it. It'll be the largest part of it, and certainly more than half. And then it can include expenses for example, if you want to attend a conference, if you want to do any training that requires being paid for, maybe you might be using in communication, engagement, or impact activities that require some funding. Research visits, they're all funded from that £7,500. There's no extra pot anywhere. That's it. That's all you get. So now we'll talk about eligibility. Who can be a postdoctoral fellowship? Joe, help me out if there's something I miss out on here, or anything you would add. So who is eligible? Well, you need a PhD from a UK university. You may have been a home student at the UK university. You may have been an international student, but you have to have a PhD. The PhD may or may not have been from an ESRC funded DTP or any other type of doctoral training entity. So I mean, if you were self-funded or however you were funded, it doesn't matter, you'll still be eligible. And you may apply to an institution where you did your PhD, or where you're based now in a kind of temporary RA role, or it may be a university that you don't yet have any association with. You mustn't, though, be a permanent academic in a permanent academic position. Right? The whole point of this is to help people into their a first kind of more long-term or permanent role as a researcher, even within higher education or beyond. So this is also open to people whose aspiration may be to have a research active role outside of the higher education sector. But if you already have that role, well, then this is not the opportunity for you. As you said, you have to have a PhD, but what do we mean by have a PhD? This is where we have to split fine hairs, really. You have to have been awarded your PhD already, or have passed the Viva with minor corrections by the deadline for the main competition, which is the 1st of June 2026. That means that some people may not have it when they're at the expression of interest stage yet, and they may not even know if they're going to pass that Viva with minor corrections. And that does put you in an awkward position. It puts the institution in an awkward position, really, because these are the rules that the ESRC have made up. And then when there's an expression of interest stage, obviously you're starting that application process some months earlier than the 1st of June. In fact, you're probably doing it right now. You must have no more than 15 months full-time equivalent active postdoctoral experience, excluding any career breaks, up to that deadline of the 1st of June 2026. So what we mean by active postdoctoral experience, there was a research component to that work. So if you've got a teaching job, but there is research time attached to that, then there was a research component to your job. And if you've been doing it for more than 15 months full-time equivalent, then you do not qualify. This is, in a way, you've already got started with that postdoctoral career. This is not who the fellowship is designed for. The most common questions we get are about eligibility. It's not always easy to figure out how this applies to an individual. In the first instance, you can ask the institution which you're applying to, and we have asked that they collect all the inquiries and forward them on to us. If they're not responding, then you can contact us directly, but we do ask first. Please do look, because people ask us questions like this all the time, and all we do is we go and look at the course specification, and we go and look at the FAQs that the ESRC have issued and that are on our website. We don't have any further information than that. That's all that we're going on. So, you can look at those for yourself as well and make the decision about whether you're eligible, and only contact us if you still have any doubts after doing that. Now, some rules about eligibility have changed a little bit this year, and particularly about how many applications you can make for a PDF. So this is the same as in previous years. Within the SWDTP, you can only submit one expression of interest. Okay, so if you're submitting an expression of interest to the University of Bournemouth, you cannot also submit an expression of interest to the University of Bath. If you do, and both are successful, you will be ruled out of the competition. So what happens is we get the nominations, and if two institutions, it's never happened, but if we see that two of our partner institutions have nominated the same person, at that point, you will be ruled out of the competition altogether. This is because we only have finite resource, and our host institutions, our partner universities, also only have finite resource for managing these competitions. So we don't have the resource to cope with people who are trying to double up their chances by applying more than once. And this year, and this is new, you can only apply to one of the ESRC doctoral training partnerships. Okay, so what that means is when we have that list of 38 nominees, we will share the names of those with the 13 and 14 other ESRC funded DTPs in the country. And again, if the same name appears on more than one list, obviously we'll make them then, in that exceptional circumstance, we may have to share a few more details to be absolutely sure it's the same person. If it is the same person, then you will be ruled out of both of those nominations will be removed, and you will not be able to enter the competition. So in other words, please, one application only at the expression of interest stage, and don't apply to other DTPs as well. So terms and conditions, this is to do with what kind of contract you're on, if you should be successful and be awarded the PDF. It has, as we said, it must be your only employment. You must be engaged in the PDF for 100% of your working time. Look at the FAQs and the specification for the one small exception to that, and it is exceptional. It's subject to normal UK employment law and university regulations. So if you are employed, you're subject to normal UK employment law and university regulations, because obviously you're employer of the university. And this nearly always means that you basically have to be resident in the UK for the duration of the fellowship. So look at that contract. If you are successful, and when the contract comes through, look at that contract carefully and make sure you understand what your commitments are. Now, the PDF only being for 9 months may, for some people, affect their eligibility for a work visa. So if you need a visa to work in UK, do check whether you'll be eligible for the visa should you win the PDF. So now I'm going to talk about the application process for the postdoctoral fellowship. I mentioned that you should be aligned with one of the DTP pathways. So, this is showing you what the pathways are. These are the interdisciplinary pathways, and showing you the institution where they run. These slides will be available after the presentation. We'll make them available on our website, as will be this recording of this information event. And then we have some disciplinary pathways, as you can see here, and also it's showing you which institutions those are held up. So that's kind of just some reference slides for you to look at if you're trying to figure out what pathway you should put down on your expression of interest form. Really important to find a mentor, really important to start that straight away. We've got a very contracted time frame for the application process this year for reasons which are completely beyond our control. So this makes this even harder. If you're having any difficulty finding a mentor, then do use those the contact information that we have for our partner institutions and ask for some help. But yes, find a pathway, which pathway works for you, find the university, find the department. You could also, we have a supervisor database on our website for potential supervisors for PhDs that are funded by us, but that same database actually works just as well to find a potential mentor for the PDF. Once you've worked out which kind of department you want to be in, you can also check out departmental websites, find a relevant research group and browse the members. Most universities have a kind of find an expert function somewhere on their website. They have a directory where you can look up experts. These are all kind of different ideas for ways in which you can find a mentor if you don't have one already. I imagine that anyone who's trying to apply this year has probably already found a mentor. Here are the key dates. So we launched the call on the 19th of March. As I said, institutions, we don't dictate to the partner institutions when their deadline is for the expression of interest. So each institution may have a different deadline for the expression of interest. Do check the date with the host institution. Names, but it will definitely be before the 5th of May. I can guarantee you that. So, you know, that's what, just 5 weeks from now. It would, and there's a lot of bank holiday between now and the 5th of May. And it would definitely be by the 5th of May, because that's when we require the partner institutions to tell us who their nominees are for the main application. And then, as we said, 1st of July is the deadline for the full application. We would expect to notify you sometime between the 13th and 18th of July of the outcomes. And your start date would be the 1st of October. That actually leaves very little time for the contract to be set up between the institution and the SRC, and for the institutions to set up a work contract for you. So everything is like, you know, running in the minimum possible amount of time this year. And we will try very hard to get our outcomes out before the 13th of July, if at all possible. The expression of interest is a kind of simpler, shorter form than the main application. There's a first page where we kind of get the information about your name, the title for your PDF. We ask some information about where you did your PhD, this is checking eligibility. And, you know, we ask you to indicate that you have not done more than 15 months full-time equivalent research active work since you finished the PhD. We ask for the date of your viva, all that information, just so we can check your eligibility. We do ask you to indicate your pathway and your proposed mentor. If you don't have a proposed mentor by that point, well, it's hard to put for the application to be strong and competitive, even at the expression of interest stage, if you haven't identified a mentor. So if you haven't, then you'd have to leave it blank. But if you have, that would definitely is quite important to do. And there's a short case for support, which includes an abstract summary. You have to talk about the impacts of your search, your research-related achievements, and your planned programme of activities. And your CV is required to be attached to that, as well as references, so that references don't get included in the word count. And very simple, the assessment criteria, all we're looking is the quality of that work programme. Is it clearly defined? Is it achievable? You can see within the expression of interest form, we've also included in the same document the assessment criteria, so you can see it's all very transparent how that application is being assessed. And we look at the quality of your work programme, and we look at impacts and outputs at that time. And remember, it has to be achievable, it has to be realistic, it has to be, you know, what makes it exceptional would be the coherence and the clear potential, that it should be clear that these activities have a very strong potential to form like a foundation for your ongoing research career afterwards. Do read the assessment criteria. Always apply for any grant, and this is true for any grant, not just the PDF. Make yourself familiar with the assessment criteria before you start writing the grant, and make sure you've read the course specification. Even having come to this, you still need to go away and read that course specification really carefully to make sure that your application is meeting the expectations of the core. you'll find when you're writing this application or any other grant application that there's just tons of detail that you could say about your research project that you cannot fit in the application form. And so you see here the tip of the iceberg, that well-used analogy, is being used to demonstrate that there's plenty that you just will not fit on that application form. And you have to think really hard about how you're presenting your case. It's often a matter of drafting and redrafting, and definitely getting feedback. Really important with any, if you're to be competitive with any application form, is that other eyes have looked at it and given you some feedback. What might be obvious, look obvious and clear to you, may not be obvious and clear to someone else. Some other tips for a strong application: you're writing for different audiences. Okay, so this the full applications, the expression of interest are probably going through 1 or 2 panels, and the people who sit on those panels may not be experts. There may be no one who's an expert in exactly the area that you're working on that panel. So you need to make sure that your application is accessible to someone who is a subject expert, but maybe, or is a social scientist, but not necessarily a specialist in the area in which you're writing. Now, someone who is a specialist in that area may pick it up. So as I say, you're writing for different audiences. You may be writing for the specialist, but you may also be writing for the kind of more general social scientist audience. And often research applications are being read by busy people, and sometimes they're reading a number of them. And so they may be trying to read your application in a short time frame. If it isn't very clear what it is you're trying to do, if it isn't, and how, then people won't have a lot of patience with it. So when you're writing the case for support, start early, start now. Read the guidance carefully, give yourself plenty of time, explain right at the top what you're doing, and why you're doing it can come below. Don't make the reader wait to see what is significant about your research. And it can feel like space is short, but do use headings and formatting for clarity. That does make a big difference. I can't see any questions yet. I wonder if I'm rattling through this too fast. It's too much information. These are the contact details also on our web page for our partner institutions. Sometimes it's a mailbox and sometimes it's an individual. Look, if you're planning, if you're serious about applying for this, and you're serious about applying, putting in an expression of interest, don't wait to use these contacts. Contact them now. They will then release the expression of interest form, but it's better for people to know that you're in the process of applying. And there may be support available within the department to help you with your application, particularly if you get past the expression of interest stage and you're in the main application. There will be support available with the institution to help you with that application. So things, this is a very competitive fellowship. We've got 5 to award, and there may be 38 people applying for that 5, and then there may be far more than 38 people, definitely. You may find that the institution you're applying for, that there are over 20 people trying to access maybe 8 nominations. So every stage of the process is competitive. So don't miss information out. Just don't. We want you to tell us the pathway. Tell us the pathway. This is what the full application form, kind of the parts of it are. It's on our website. You can have a look at that full application form. The word lengths have changed this year. So if you've been looking at kind of out-of-date specifications, the specifications for last year, then do kind of look really carefully at the specifications for this year, because there are changes. So you've got fewer words this year for writing the objectives, and I think fewer words for beneficiaries, and the case study, the case for support, which is the key part of the application form, is that's 4 sides of A4. It's shorter than it was before, and so is the justification for resources. But the good news is there's fewer attachments that you need, so there's a little bit less running around looking for people to kind of contribute some of those attachments. You do need the mental statement and a list of publications. If you're planning a research visit, then you need a letter of support from the institution that you're visiting. And if you're planning to work with a partner, so it may be that you're working with a partner for the purposes of impact or dissemination or engaging with different audiences, then you should have a letter of support from that partner. So you do need to factor that in. Assessment criteria, well, the key ones were the quality of the work programme and impact and engagement, which I've already talked about. So this slide only features the other criteria that we will look at: value for money, mentoring arrangements, consideration of ethical issues, and that includes ethical issues related to communication and engagement of the research, impact, communication and engagement. Everyone should fill in and think about the ethical issues and fill those in. And it's even, I mean, you're not doing new research, you're not allowed to do new research this year. So it has to be about the activities that you're doing as part of the postdoctoral fellowship. And if you need it, which is unlikely, but if you do need it, then do include a data management plan. The SRC, basically the data management plan is a part of every single application form. They couldn't remove it from this one. What support will you need to write the application? Well, if your mentor is going to be any good as your mentor, they're going to give you feedback on at least on a draft, and then write the letter of support. The head of the department that will host you needs to sign the application form to confirm support. You need an accountant at the host institution to draw up the budget, and you need critical friends or reviewers who will give you feedback on the proposal as you're writing it. I would say part of the application form is a lay summary, so ask a lay person whether it makes sense to them. And you know that the assessors are not going. I mean, there's no way that I could find 3 assessors all from the same discipline as your application is coming from. It's 1 or 2 of them at least, and possibly all 3 will be, yes, social sciences, but not necessarily in the same discipline. So ask someone who's working in a different social science discipline to give you feedback on your application. You may not have to find all these people yourself. There may be a research manager or a research officer that facilitates that process within your host institution. So do ask about that. So do ask about what support there is for grant applications, and do ask about what institutional approvals there are. So, for example, because there's a budget, that will need to be signed off probably by more than one person, which means that the budget needs to be put together in advance 1 or 2 weeks before the deadline. Ask about these things so you know what your real deadlines are as you're preparing the application. Okay, that's the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, you can pop them in the Q&A, or you can put up your hand and we'll give permissions for your microphone to come on so you can ask the questions. Or if there's any of those slides you'd like to look again at, let me know. Simon, what's your question? Got a question, Simon first, and then Susie.
Hi there, thanks for the presentation. I actually put my question in the Q&A. I'm just going to ask it here because I've got to go in a second.
That's fine.
Which is, I was on a call with a different DTP, and they mentioned that we could submit multiple expression of interests to different DDPs, as long as in the end we only submitted one full application. But that contradicts what you said earlier. So I just wanted to kind of double confirm that.
Yeah, no, technically that's correct. My point was you could only within our DTP you can only submit one expression of interest. You could we're not comparing expression of interest applications with within our DTP with other DTPs. Some DTPs don't have an expression of interest stage.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the time is short, so you know, to write a competitive application, you probably want to focus your energy on just one, your time and energy, because each one needs to be adapted, because you'll be working with a different mentor and be based in a different research centre. But that's advice. We don't know about the other expressions of interest that you submit to institutions outside of our DTP.
Okay, thanks, Beth.
Yeah. Susie, you have a question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. I was wondering if the main aim of the fellowship is like in policy impact, that kind of thing. Can the mentor be from one of the professional services departments of a university?
But the main aim is to do with your research career.
Yeah.
So if policy impact is really important, and you know your aspiration is to move on to a policy influencing role that also involves research, then I would say what you need to do is find an academic who is also good at policy, you know, has a track record of policy influencing. You can anyway work with professional services. I mean, that's often the service that they do provide. They want academics to get in contact with them to work, you know, to have greater influence and impact through their research.
Okay, thank you.
I think it was Monica and then Nuruddin. So Monica, what's your question?
Hiya. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I understand that you need to have either the PhD already awarded, no matter what kind of minor corrections or major corrections, as long as it is awarded, or if you are short on time, it needs to be minor corrections. Pretty much my understanding is that you just need to be awarded. You need to have the PhD awarded before the deadline.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes. So
Okay.
You must have passed your Viva with minor corrections by the 1st of June, and the PhD should be awarded by the 1st of October.
Okay, but for instance, if you had it like with major corrections, but you had already been awarded that, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. So if you had major corrections, and you've done those major corrections, you've submitted them and they've been accepted, and you've got the you've got the letter, and you've got that letter from the examination board saying, you know, well done, you've been awarded the PhD. That's okay. So if it's major corrections that you had, then you do have to be awarded the PhD.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Nuruddin. Hello, Nuruddin, do you have a question?
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that my mic wasn't. Thank you very much for that concise presentation. My question is very, very specific. Regarding 15 months postdoctoral employment, or wherever you, I've been working in academic prior my completion of my PhD. Like midway of my PhD, I was working in academic as a lecturer, and my PhD thesis, the corrected version just submitted, and with Viva done and passed before.
Yeah.
So the application of this rule, how is it applicable to me?
Yeah, we're only looking at postdoctoral experience.
Okay,
So
it doesn't matter.
for that 15 months, the clock starts ticking at the point that you're awarded the PhD, and it goes up to the 1st of June.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so you'll be okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I think Amy, And then is it BQ? Amy first.
Thank you.
We can't hear you.
Where is the part of the application you can? Oh,
We can't hear you.
Sorry,
You're
can you
cutting
hear me
out.
now?
Are you able to put the are you able to put the question in the Q&A?
yeah, I have put it in the Q&A, but I can do it again.
See it. Okay, BQ Jin.
Hi, I have a question about the new research. You mentioned that this fellowship doesn't fund new research, and I wonder, does it mean that any data collection is not allowed, even if it's based on like my PhD?
No, no more data collections. That won't be
Okay.
funded.
Okay, thanks.
Anna Hope. You have a question?
Hi, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I also asked a question in the Q&A, but it's related to the kind of part-time and what you're allowed to do, because currently I'm working as a research associate on a couple of projects, very part-time basis, but that are both related to my PhD research, which are due to complete at the end of the year. So there'd be a bit of an overlap, and I didn't know whether that was allowed to finish off. It would be really bad to have to cancel those projects, or otherwise if I could work part-time but with a kind of compressed period, because you mentioned if you work part-time the money had to be spent by a certain time.
Yeah, no, I mean in previous years there was a bit of a wriggle room to defer your start date, but this year there isn't. So no, unfortunately, no, there's no way to manage that overlap, and the PDF is all of your contracted time, so that's something you'd have to go back and talk to your host institution about, because I suspect they don't want to let go of the funding from those other projects.
No.
But yeah,
interesting. And it's the 1st of October, is it? Has to, or
yeah,
is that the actual start date? 1st of October.
The start date is the 1st of October.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. We've got quite a lot of questions in the Q&A, as well as this is a handout. So I'm going to go through this piece of their handout first.
Sorry, Angela.
Yeah.
Just that question quickly from Amy was, is there space on the application to outline the evidence that you've been working part-time throughout the PhD and need to continue as such?
CV. So that should be clear from your CV, and you might put it into the case for support as well. You don't want to use up too much space from the case for support, but you may just state the fact of it in the case of support. But yeah, I mean, it's generally, please put those CVs together in a way where it is, if you've got some postdoctoral or active experience, then please put those CVs together in a way that it's clear. The other thing is you can be part-time for kind of care. If you've got care responsibilities, you can be part-time for health-related issues. It's just that the concerns around you're not supposed to have other work while you're doing the PDF, except in that very, very exceptional circumstance. Where are we? Louis Player, do you have a question?
Hello. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. My question was around the interdisciplinary pathways. I popped it in the chat as well, but it's around if I applied for the sustainability interdisciplinary pathway, is it preferred to have 2 mentors, or is one also good?
Well, I think one is also good.
Okay, great. You mentioned having 2 for that one.
It wouldn't surprise us if you had 2 mentors and they're in different disciplines because it's interdisciplinary, but it's not a requirement that you have 2 mentors if it's interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
But the main
great.
thing
So
is
if
the main primary mentor, the single mentor or the primary mentor, the main mentor should be, clearly
an interdisciplinary person.
sciences based. Yeah.
Okay, so if they're social science based, but are also kind of an interdisciplinary researcher, that would be equally strong.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. How are we doing? I can see we still got hands up. Nuruddin Adesina, did you ask a question? Your question, I think. I'm not sure you got to ask your question. Nuruddin Adesina.
Sorry, it's me again. Just quick clarification. Specifically, I have an ongoing exchange program, research collaboration with an institution outside UK in Canada. And in this case, can I, as part of what to do with the fellowship, can I use the same institution as part of my plan for the fellowship, or in terms of research visits, or I need to go and find something different from what I've been doing before?
Could you email me with that inquiry, because it sounds very specific and somebody's decided to drill the wall right now and I can't really hear you properly. So could you just email those details to inquiry, the SWDTP inquiries email address, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just chip in as well with that? If anybody's got any specific relating to them and their circumstances, could you email those through rather than ask them here, and just kind of keep to more processy stuff here, just because it just helps with the flow, and everybody's got different nuances and it's really hard to pick up the nuances in this sort of forum. So if there's something specifically related that's nuanced to your circumstance, if you could email those through, that would be really helpful, and then we can look at it properly and respond properly, if that's okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to pick out some of the questions that are in the Q&A. So there's a question saying that, because it's a good example to work through, that you've just completed the ESRC PhD full-time, and you want to apply for the fellowship part-time for 18 months, so that you can take on 50% teaching role. No, you can't do that, because that's your main role has to be the PDF. You can't take on a teaching role alongside the PDF. So you'd have to do the PDF full time for 9 months. Yeah, so there was a question about developing a funding proposal from Ying Lee. As you mentioned, the PDF does not allow new research. If I want to develop a funding proposal, does it count towards new research? No, it doesn't. We very much encourage you to develop a funding proposal. That's a good thing to do during the PDF. Can you apply to the SWDTP and the 9DTP? Well, I don't know what system of application there is for the 9DTP. But you cannot go to the main application stage for both DTPs, right? We'll know, and you'll be removed from both competitions. Is it possible to apply to Exeter and Greenwich? Well, you could apply for an expression of interest stage at Greenwich and expression of interest stage at Exeter. No one would be any wiser. We don't really encourage it, because we think you're going to end up with 2 applications that aren't as strong as if you put all your eggs in one basket. But you cannot go to the main application stage at both of those places. The project title is a project title. So in the application form where it asks for project title, that's the project title there's a project title for your PDF project, if you see what I mean, even though it's not new research. It's not the title of your PhD. It doesn't have to be the title of planned publications. It could be a title that has something like building a career. It could mention career in the title. It could mention impact or engagement in the title. It may not mention any of those things. Case for support. What is the case for support? Well, look at the application form. The main part of your application is where you write the case for support, and there's kind of further detail on what goes into the case for support there. Let's see if I can find the, I think I put it on the application stage. Yeah. That's the full application. The case for support was the expression of interest. Yeah, so it will have about 4 sections in it. You know, you'll say something about the progress so far of your research, something about the impacts of your research, something about your research related achievements and your planned program of activities. It will all be justified. It's a good idea to like talk about your mentor a little bit in the case for support. Don't make it look like you're taking the mentor for granted, because you're showing how the mentor is part of the package for your PDF. So why this mentor is a good match for your research. You should really be mentioning that. Any questions about supervisors? Yes, so some places call the supervisor director of studies. Can the director of studies, if someone has already been your supervisor, we don't encourage, they may not, probably not the best person to be your mentor. There are exceptional circumstances where you can make that case, but it doesn't make your application stronger. It just doesn't look strong. If you know, people kind of start making cases that the only person with expertise in this field is their former supervisor, it just makes it look like you're a bit narrow in your ambitions or your understanding of your discipline. And we at the SWDTP, we do not allow you to go forward with to the full award we've never allowed an awardee to have a sole mentor who is their second supervisor, who is their supervisor, whether first or second supervisor. We've always said just go and find a second mentor or something. We just, you know, broaden your horizons. It's really important. So about the part where you mentioned part-time. No, you can't have another job next to the fellowship, even if it's a part-time job. Okay, just do the fellowship for 9 months full-time. Focus on your research. Can the data collection be continued if it was started during the PhD? No, you finish the PhD, you finish the data collection for the PhD. Is the one still eligible if been employed on a postdoc for over 15 months but only graduated a month ago? Okay, I think we've addressed that one. I've been right. If you've initiated additional research projects, would it be appropriate to include these projects within the scope of the fellowship? Well, you can't, because you can't include new research within the fellowship. Is the answer to that. Could you, so that was Navod Leonardi's question. Okay, so some of these I think we've addressed. Okay. You can stay in the same institution and in the same department as where you did your PhD. That's fine. So you can move to another institution, or you can stay where you are to take up the postdoc fellowship. You can move between departments within a university, or you can move universities. That's all allowed. Or you can stay where you are in the same department in the same university. But ideally, well, really do encourage you to look for someone besides your supervisor to be a mentor. It will make your application stronger. Okay. If you did your PhD, there's a question here. If I did my PhD, this is from Sarah West. If I did my PhD full time, do I have to do the fellowship full time as well? And the answer is yes, unless you have other reasons to go part-time. So, for example, people do a PhD, they have a baby, and then they do the PDF, they have a child, they now have care responsibilities, they can only work part-time, so they can then do the PDF part-time. What they can't do is have another job alongside the PDF. The expression of interest is just for this year's competition. Yeah, EdDs are okay. So we've been talking about PhDs. Sorry, Jasmine Chan. We've been talking about PhDs. Talk doctorates do count as well. So if you've done an EdD or another type of talk doctorate, as long as it's a doctorate in a UK institution, you are eligible to apply for the PDF. So there's a question by someone who says it's 16 months since the Viva, but they've not had active research experience nor any employment since my Viva. Okay, that's that you can still apply. So you may have, for example, somebody did their Viva, and then for the next 16 months, they were working full-time doing, I don't know, supply work in secondary schools or teaching English as a second language. It was a job that had nothing to do with research. You're still eligible to apply for the PDF. If you spent 16 months full-time equivalent or 15 months full-time equivalent, and you were teaching in a university and you had some time for research, then you cannot apply. Is it possible 4 days a week and start? No, you have to. Yeah, okay, that's questions about start date. Start date has to be 1st of October, come what may. Ashley, do we have time for one more question from you? I can see Ashley has a hand up.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I had another question regarding the FTEs. I've had more than a year and a half of time has passed since I've received my diploma, but all the time I've done basically short-term contracts that are day-based contracts. So even if the contract is for, let's say, 3 or 6 months, it's actually, let's say, 30 FTEs spread across. And is there a way for me to indicate that in the application so people don't look at my CV, look at the time periods per experience and say this is clearly more than 15 FTEs? Like, where would be the most appropriate place to place that information?
The CV is the best place to put it, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would indicate, for instance, the contract ran from, I don't know, January to June, but it is equivalent to 30 FTEs or something. Or do I say like 30 contractual days or?
Yeah, whatever makes sense for the mix of work that you've got.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think Caitlin, have you got a hand up, and then we'll have to end the session. Caitlin, did you have a question?
Yeah, hi, thank you. I noticed one of the suggested activities was about engaging with sort of stakeholders and potential groups of interest.
Yeah.
Where does PPIE fall within that? Because that's that sort of weird boundary between data, you're kind of collecting data, but you're not collecting data. It's a way to engage. So if I was putting an application forward to develop a grant proposal research plan and I wanted to use PPIE with stakeholders as a way to inform that research plan, is that appropriate, or should you just steer clear from anything that could even slightly resemble data collection?
You learn the art of writing a proposal in a way that fits the specification. You see what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, don't call it research. Just don't call it research. Present it as engagement.
Yeah, and just very, very
or
quickly
present it as like part of the process of writing the proposal.
Yes, yeah. And in terms of the mentor not being allowed to be a previous supervisor, if it's an external academic who was involved in your PhD as a research collaborator and so is on some of your papers, but was never your sort of PhD supervisor. Is that appropriate?
Yeah, that's good. You're learning the art of expressing the role in a way that doesn't contradict the eligibility requirement.
Perfect.
That's exactly how we do it. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caitlin. Okay, I think we'll have to end the event there. Thank you everyone for attending, and